There are 3 Targaryens in A Song of Ice and Fire, except one of them is a bastard who doesn't know he's a Targaryen, another one says he's a Targaryen but none of you believe him, and the third one is the most powerful individual in the world who also might be infertile now because the witch who killed her son said so. With Rhaegar, Aerys, Rhaella, Viserys, Rhaego, and Aemon all recently deceased, the House of Targaryen is perilously thin. Will the bloodline die out in the Winds of Winter and A Dream of Spring? Or will only the name die, but the blood survive?
History does not remember blood. It remembers names.
History might only remember names, that's right, Corlys. So if the Targaryen name dies out, will the histories remember them? Or in 1,000 years from now, will the Targaryens only be a legend, like all these other legendary figures who might never have lived? The Bloodstone Emperor and Amethyst Empress, Lan the Clever and Brandon the Builder, Garth Greenhand. I think one of George Martin's main themes in Ice and Fire is how the good times are coming to an end, but there's a hopeful outlook on the future.
But the important thing is that love and compassion and empathy with other human beings is still possible. Laughter is still possible, even laughter in the face of death. The struggle to make the world a better place. There is darkness in the world, but I don't think we necessarily need to give way to despair. So winter is coming, but light the torches and drink the wine and gather around the fire. We can still defy it.
Bittersweet is Martin's whole shtick. All of our main houses in Westeros are extremely thin, unrealistically thin, but it's a fantasy series, so whatever. Sweet Robin is the last Aaron of the main line. Stannis and Shireen are the last official Baratheons. House Tyrell is down to Willis, Garland, and Marjorie after Mace kicks the bucket, besides plenty of distant cousins, of course. The Tullys have been reduced to a captive Edmure and his fetus inside Rosalind Frey. House Greyjoy is pretty much up to Asha at this point. The Lannisters are a mess and will almost certainly be succeeded by either a distant cousin or by Tyrion's definitely real daughter, who Dany will definitely legitimize. Go watch that video.
I may have gone too far in a few places.
The Martells are doing sort of okay, assuming one of Arianne or Trystane stays breathing. But House Stark is down to Sansa, Arya, and Rickon, none of whom are present at the moment. Ned's dead, Rob's dead, Jon's offspring would need to be legitimized as a Stark, and Jaime's shove resulted in Bran's reproductive organs no longer being viable.
Bran has no interest in ruling, and he can't father children.
The whole entire agnatic cognatic primogeniture inheritance system is in shambles. That's the bitter part, but the sweet part, I think, will be seeing some new faces lead Westeros into future generations. This video is brought to you by my patrons. If you want early access to all my videos, some exclusive content, and some other stuff, please check out patreon.com/crusaderchris. I love each and every one of you. Now back to the video. First, we have to differentiate between name extinction and blood extinction. Technically, every human who's either from Europe right now or has ancestry from there is a direct descendant of Charlemagne. By that logic, Charlemagne's bloodline never died out, and his family is still going strong. It encompasses billions of people. But for the sake of sanity, I'm not going to say that House Targaryen will never be truly extinct because some Targaryen 500 years ago in Valyria took a vacation to Pentos where he impregnated the hot waitress at some resort who then gave birth to triplet Targaryen bastards who all went on to sire children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, etc. of their own. By that logic, a family's bloodline is pretty much never extinct. So let's think about all the people of Planetos who have recent ancestors bearing the name Targaryen. Daenerys is easy. She's a direct descendant all the way back to the Valyrian freehold through Aenar the Exile. Here's the unbroken link that gets us there. Only look closely if you don't care about show spoilers. Now, Dany thinks she's alone in the world, but that's not necessarily true. Moving down a generation, we see that she has 2 living nephews, both from her brother Rhaegar. Yes, for the purposes of this video, I'm accepting that R+L=J, and that young Griff is who he thinks he is. So we've got 2 Targaryens and 1 Targaryen bastard with the name Snow. their situation is already looking brighter than the Baratheons, who began as a Targaryen cadet branch, sort of. Assuming Orys Baratheon was indeed the bastard son of Aegon Targaryen, and thus a half-brother of Aegon, Visenya, and Rhaenys the Conquerors, all of House Baratheon has a little drop of dragon blood. And all the recent Baratheons have more than a drop, since just a few generations ago, Rhaelle Targaryen married Ormond Baratheon. Robert, Stannis, and Renly all had a Targaryen grandmother, or great-grandmother for Shireen. Robert's Targaryen lineage was part of the justification that gave him the crown, and we can look to our own histories as a reference. Take Henry IV of England. He belonged to House Lancaster, but when he took the throne from Richard II, a Plantagenet, Henry proved legitimacy because the Lancasters were a very new cadet branch of the Plantagenets. So even though he didn't take the Plantagenet name, he was a very recent descendant of them. Richard II was his first cousin. Another example is the exchange of France's throne from House Capet to House Valois. Philip IV, a Capet, had 3 sons, none of whom produced heirs. So the throne passed to Philip IV's younger brother, Charles of House Valois. The Valois were a cadet branch of the Capets, thereby proving their legitimacy. If George Martin wanted to get real complicated with it and make Westeros more like Europe, Stannis would have founded his own cadet branch when he assumed Dragonstone. And if he or Shireen ever take the throne, the royal name would switch to whatever Stannis decided to call himself. King Stannis Baratheon, or something. Based on these examples, it wouldn't have been unexpected at all for Robert to have simply taken the royal name and ruled as Robert Targaryen. But he didn't need to because everybody realized his legitimacy. He had nothing to prove and took the opportunity to make his own name the royal name. My point is, names, or how closely related you are to a name, matters a lot. Even more so in Westeros than in real life. Charles Valois didn't call himself Charles Capet, even though he was literally born a Capet. Blood matters on Earth, and names matter on Westeros. During a 300-year-long dynasty, House Targaryen should have several cadet branches, and those cadet houses should have, at some point, become the royal house. When Mycor became the Prince of Summerhall, he should have established a new line. So when he unexpectedly assumed the Iron Throne, House Targaryen would become House Summerhall, and Dany's name would be Daenerys Summerhall. But that's real life, way more confusing and way more names than a book series. Wait, where was I before I started comparing Westeros to mid-second millennium European monarchies? Oh right, current inhabitants of Planetos with Targaryen ancestry. We did Aegon, Jon, and Dany, Stannis, and Shireen. Next would be the Martells. Daeron II's sister, who is Princess Daenerys of Dorne during Dunk and Egg times, married Prince Meryn Martell. From Daenerys, we have an unbroken line all the way to Doran, Oberyn, Arianne, Trystane, and the Sand Snakes. Probably, I mean. The Martell family tree is super undetailed. All we know is that House Martell continued through Meryn and Daenerys, and Quentyn says, "I have Targaryen blood in me." But he gets cut off before saying which Targaryen he traces himself back to. In all likelihood, it's Daenerys, meaning that just like Dany and Stannis and Shireen, the Martells go all the way back to Valyria, to Aenar the Exile. Viserys and Arianne are some type of cousins, and considering Elia Martell was about to become queen before Tywin Lannister got involved, blood relation is used to justify House Martell's secret Targaryen support. Doran even drops the Targaryen credo in probably the coldest line in Book 5. Vengeance, justice, fire, and blood. A marriage alliance with Viserys or Dany seems off the table now, but perhaps Aegon? By the way, Daenerys has a Martell ancestor from the same generation of that other Daenerys who married Prince Meryn. Daeron II's queen was Meryn's sister, Maria Martell. If all the Martells die out in wins, Dany could stake her claim to Sunspear. Anywho, after the Martells, we can move to Aegon V's sisters, Daella and Rhae. This would be circa 220-ish AC. Aegon V is Dany's great-grandfather. The thing is, all we're told is that Daella and Rhae got married and had children. Who they married and how many children they had, and what became of those children, George Martin never told us. Why?
That's interesting.
I mean literally why. I'm not about to go into some conspiracy theory here. I just think it's weird. Come on, George. Just kidding. I absolutely have a conspiracy theory. This has Dunk and Egg spoilers though, so skip to this time code to avoid that if you want. George Martin has confirmed that the current generations of House Tarth have recent Targaryen ancestry. And he's also confirmed that Brienne of Tarth is a descendant of Sir Duncan the Tall. The holes begin to fill themselves. Dunk, after becoming Egg's Kingsguard and living in the Red Keep, engaged Princess Rhae in an affair of the heart. Dunk really shouldn't be fornicating the king's sister, but Egg's his boy. He's not going to geld him and send him off to the wall with Bloodraven. And Rhae has a history of concocting love potions to get boys interested in her. So it's feasible she concocts a love potion to seduce Dunk, and Egg doesn't blame his big buddy for getting tricked by the same trick he fell for years ago. So Rhae becomes pregnant with Dunk's love child, and to cover up this scandal, Egg quickly marries her off to Lord Tarth. Rhae has a son who everyone thinks is a legitimate Tarth, but is actually Dunk's half-Targaryen bastard. Anyways, Brienne would be the great-grandchild, roughly, of this Lord Tarth, meaning that Brienne's great-great-grandmother was Rhae Targaryen. OMG, another friend for Dany. By the way, I'm not crazy. This theory has been discussed by plenty of other people. Brienne Targaryen. Theorizing about Daella's marriage is a bit harder, but it makes sense that, as a Targaryen princess, she'd marry the lord of a great house. Well, the lords of Stark, Baratheon, and Lannister are all spoken for at this time. Probably not a Martell either, just because there's already been a few Targaryen-Martell matches. Certainly not an Aeron, because if Jon Arryn had a Targaryen princess for his mother, it would be, since he was born right around the time Daella would have been married, I think we would have heard about it during Robert's Rebellion. Jon Arryn's mother being Daella Targaryen is a lot more impressive than Robert's grandmother being Rhaelle Targaryen, and it would give Jon the better claim to the throne. Daella didn't marry a Greyjoy because Egg didn't hate her, so that leaves Tyrell or Tully as the last Lord Paramounts Daella might have married. Tyrell is kind of boring, and they're already loyal to House Targaryen because Aegon the Conqueror raised them to Lord Paramountcy in the first place. No need to give them a Targaryen bride. So Lord Tully is the more fun option, a fish married to a dragon. This would be Hoster's father who married Daella, meaning that Edmure, Catelyn, Lysa, and thus Robb, Sansa, Arya, Bran, Rickon, and Sweet Robin all have a recent Targaryen ancestor. Another fun option is whoever the Lord of Starfall was at the time. This could help explain why current members of House Dane, like Edric and Geralt, have silver hair like Valyrians. They got it from Daella. Daella's mother was Diana Dane, so by marrying the Lord of Starfall, she'd be keeping the families real nice and close, the way George likes to do it. Feel free to comment down below your own theories about who Daella and Rhae married. And while you're down there, smash the like button and make sure you're subscribed. I am a YouTuber, so this is part of my dialogue tree. Now let's move back to Daella and Rhae's older cousin, Daenora. Daenora Targaryen married Aerion Brightflame, and oh boy, I'm about to do Dunk and Egg spoilers again. Skip here if you feel the need. In 232, Daenora gave birth to a son named Maegor. Nice one. Real funny, you guys. But that same year, Aerion took a healthy swig of wildfire and quite literally burned to death from the inside out. And then we heard nothing about Daenora or Maegor. The tragedy of Summerhall happens 27 years later, in 259, so it could be that they both died there. In fact, Daella and Rhae and all of their kids I just spent way too long theorizing about, all could have died at Summerhall too, meaning there's way fewer folks alive right now with Targaryen blood than I thought. But assuming they didn't die, I'd like to think Daenora took Maegor east after the throne went to Egg at the Great Council. Mayhaps Daenora shared her cousin-husband's penchant for dipshittery and went to the ruins of Valyria thinking she could find a dragon's egg, or an actual dragon or something, that could turn her son into a real Maegor 2.0, and allow him to conquer back the Iron Throne. Obviously, they would have died there, I think that goes without saying. Or maybe Daenora just married a rich merchant prince somewhere in the Free Cities, and there's some Lysene or Tyroshi family out there with Targaryen ancestry. And perhaps Maegor became a well-adjusted adult with a nice little family in Volantis, and their descendants live on today. Hopefully Dany doesn't accidentally burn one of them during her liberation of Essos. Next we have to go all the way back to Aegon III's youngest daughter, Elaena. By the way, now it's House of the Dragon spoilers. You know the drill. She got married 3 times and had children with 3 men, but only 2 of those were her husbands. Alan Velaryon was married to Elaena's aunt Baela, a woman his own age, but Baela died at some point years later, and Alan was now horny for his much younger niece, Elaena. She is literally 35 entire years younger than him. Luckily, Alan got lost at sea, but Elaena did give birth to his bastard twins, Jon and Jane Waters. Their descendants aren't Targaryens or Velaryons because Jon's son formed his own house, the House of Longwaters. During A Feast for Crows, we learn that the dungeons of the Red Keep are run by Yennefer Longwaters, Elaena Targaryen's descendant. Anyways, Elaena went on to give birth to 1 Plum, Viserys, and 4 Penroses. Presumably, the modern Plums, including Lord Philip and his 3 sons, all trace their lineage back to Viserys and Elaena. Harwin Plum might marry Amory Frey now that Lancel's no longer interested, which means their offspring will have a tiny drop of dragon in them too. Same thing with the Penroses. When Stannis sent his shadow assassin after Courtney Penrose to win back Storm's End, he was killing a fellow Targaryen bloodhaver. If we loosen our restrictions for what constitutes kinslaying, then both of Stannis and Mel's assassinations were kinslays. And Elaena's other aunt, Baela's sister Rhaena, also had kids. 6 daughters with her second husband, Garmund Hightower. But Garmund was a 3rd son and never inherited Oldtown, and we have no idea what became of those 6 half-Targaryen daughters. Perhaps one of them wed Garmund's brother's heir, since cousin marriages aren't rare in Westeros, and Targaryen blood entered the main line of House Hightower that way. Otherwise, some random-ass houses have a drop of dragon blood thanks to Rhaena's 6 daughters. Before Elaena, about 90 years before, we have to find Sarah Targaryen for the next offshoot of Targaryen blood. Sarah was King Jaehaerys' 9th out of 15 children, and 5th out of 7 daughters, and she was the most difficult too. Instead of becoming a septa to correct her promiscuous proclivities, Sarah ditched Westeros for Lys and thus spent the rest of her life in the Free Cities. We have no idea when she died, if she ever married, or how many children she might have had. We do know she had at least 3 sons, all of them bastards, who traveled to Westeros in 101 AC to try and become king. I'm assuming the eldest was trying to become king, and his bastard brothers were there for moral support. Anyways, we know who won that one. One of the bastard's fathers was a Triarch of Volantis, so potentially there is Targaryen blood in some noble Volantine families of today. And by today, I do mean the year of our Lord 300 AC. I sure hope Dany doesn't burn any of them when she liberates the slaves of Volantis. Right, guys?
Wrong.
Going further back is kind of pointless. We're centuries in the past now, so who really cares how many Targaryen bastards and great-great-great-great-grandchildren of Targaryen bastards exist right now? There's a ton, but we don't know their names. Any fair-haired dockworker in the Blackwater might have a drop of dragon in him. So I've established why the bloodline of House Targaryen isn't likely to die out. Even if Dany, Jon, and Aegon don't have any offspring, perhaps Shireen, Arianne, Trystane, etc. will. But they won't have the Targaryen name. How will the Targaryen name die out at the end of A Song of Ice and Fire? Firstly, and most obviously, Aegon Targaryen will die. You can watch my Chaos in Westeros video to hear my theories for the southern plotlines of The Winds of Winter, but my basic thoughts are that young Griff's actual paternity won't matter. He'll die before anyone can confront Illyrio and see if Aegon's actually a Mopatis or whatever. Rather than obnoxiously being an obstacle for power-hungry Dany's quest for the Iron Throne, which is one of the laziest theories in this entire fanbase, I think Aegon will try to fight Euron. The Crow's Eye is pestering the entire Reach at the moment, and is probably planning some tomfoolery for Oldtown, and Aegon will try winning the trust of his people by putting down this lunatic squid. He will lose because, just like while playing Savas, Aegon failed to keep his dragon close. Daenerys had a boy who died stillborn. According to Mirri Maz Duur, she isn't likely to have another. Dany knew how it went with prophecies. They were made of words, and words were wind. There would be no son for Lorak, no heir to unite the Draken and Harpy. When the sun rises in the west and sets in the east, when the seas go dry and mountains blow in the wind like leaves, only then would her womb quicken once again. But Daenerys Targaryen had other children, tens of thousands who had hailed her as their mother when she broke their chains. Maybe I'm in the minority here, but I don't think Miri actually cursed Daenerys. Miri Mazdur's magic is questionable every time we see it. Did she turn Khal Drogo into a zombie, or is he like this because he ignored her medical instructions? Did she really make Rhaego into a stillborn lizard baby? Or is that just something we know sometimes happens to Targaryen women, and Dany was literally 14 years old trying to have a baby in an extremely stressful situation? Did Dany have a stillbirth in her final chapter of Dance because of Miri's prophecy? Or is she just malnourished and sick? Or she wasn't even pregnant, and she's just had a bunch of poisonous berries? Maybe George Martin's original plan back in the 90s was for House Targaryen to die out with Daenerys. But somewhere along the way, it seems he fell in love with writing about them. He expanded Targaryen lore 100-fold, added a ton of material about them for Fire and Blood, pushed for HBO to make a series about the Dance of the Dragons, and now they're doing Aegon the Conqueror as well. So will George really end the Targaryen name, or will he subvert our expectations? In my opinion, Daenerys thinks about her status as the last Targaryen, and about the prophecy that she'll never have another child, way too much for George not to subvert this. Obviously, Jon and Aegon's existence makes her not the last Targaryen, but even after they're all dead, I think the Targaryen name will survive through Dany's child. The ending of Ice and Fire has to be bittersweet. George Martin said so. Perhaps Dany's current children, her dragons, all die in the process of saving the world from the others. Magic leaves Westeros once more, but our hero becomes a mother to the child she thought she'd never have. Or Dany herself will die in self-sacrifice, laying down her life to save her children because that's what heroes and mothers do. Dany is the mother of dragons, and considers herself the mother figure of all those thousands of slaves she's freed, the ones who called her Misa. She'll give birth to her child and realize that in order to save its life, to not let it be killed by magic like her last child, she must do everything she can to stop the others. Dany and one or all of her dragons will die, but her child and all of the world's children will survive. Or, sometimes I like to reference Martin's 1993 outline whenever it fits my narrative. There he lists 5 characters who will all make it to the end of the series, and Dany's name is among them. Now, does make it through mean alive at the end? Or does it mean Dany makes it until the end, where she dies? If she does live, I could see her sacrificing her dragons in the fight against the dead, but coming away with a human child of her own. Or maybe even one of the dragons will survive so that Dany can continue to eradicate slavery in the east, and the dragon will hatch an egg for Dany's kid to one day ride. But this scenario is definitely more sweet than bitter. Oh, and the dad is Jon. That's obvious, right? The guy who says he'll never father a bastard because he hated being one so much? He's definitely gonna copulate Daenerys, probably not on a boat, but who knows, and Dany will give birth to their bastard love child before dying to save the world. The whole entire story, we've been seeing Jon's and Dany's lives running parallel. The same beats, but without knowing the other even exists. This series is leading up to their union, and the product of their union is the future. This product might technically be a bastard though, so how will the Targaryen name live on? Well, I think it would be kind of funny if only the fetus is a bastard. After realizing he got Dany pregnant, Jon will stress out about having a bastard son of his own, so he'll propose to Dany, they'll find some septon, maybe Maribald comes north with Brienne and the Brotherhood, or they'll just do it the old-fashioned way in front of a weirwood tree, and they'll get married real fast. I don't know, I'm basically writing fanfiction here, but it's good fanfiction. And sorry to all my Jon Val heads out there. Even though I'm one of you, I'm also a Daenerys truther. Let me know down in the comments if you think the Targaryen name will die out at the end of A Song of Ice and Fire, or if Jon, Dany, and or Aegon will have children to carry on the legacy. But even if Daenerys has a child with Jon, I'm not suggesting this will be a chosen one heir to the Seven Kingdoms who must one day ascend his or her familial throne. This entire series, the non-magical parts at least, is about deconstructing the idea of monarchy and the divine right to rule, or the right to rule just because your mother or father ruled. Robert is a useless drunk. Joffrey is sadistic. Tommen is at the mercy of his self-serving mother. Aerys is a mass-murdering lunatic. Viserys is abusive and so egotistical that it killed him. Even a good Targaryen, like Jaehaerys, was a shitty father and mostly bad husband who created a legal doctrine setting himself above the rest of humanity simply on the basis of his divine Valyrian blood.
Look how easy it is to be racist. Let's continue.
And Jaehaerys and Viserys' actions led to a massive war that got thousands of folks killed who would otherwise still be alive if these two nincompoops' decisions, or lack thereof, weren't powerful enough to decide the fate of an entire population. I'd be very surprised if the monarchical structure of the Iron Throne still exists at the end of the story, at least not in the same way it always has. Whether that means a great council is called every time a monarch dies, and that's how Bran becomes king, or whether that means a monarchy is abolished entirely in favor of some version of democracy or a parliamentary system, there is lots of options George could take. Let's not get too lost in the fanfic here to realize that even our beloved Dany and Jon's own child isn't deserving of ruling with absolute authority over millions of people simply because their parents were both awesome. That being said, all hail Brienne of Tarth Targaryen, Emperor of the entire fucking world. A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms premieres on January 18th, so I'll be making weekly Chris views on that. Hopefully those will be up every Wednesday-ish after each Sunday episode. If you care about that, make sure you're subscribed so you won't miss anything. Okay, goodbye, thanks for watching, 7 blessings to ya.